So this week's lesson is on pie dough. It's a pretty old-fashioned recipe. It's one of the staples in everybody's home. I think that it's something really important to learn whether you are super interested in culinary or you're super interested in baking and pastry, because whether you're going to make a savory pie like a meat pie or a chicken pot pie, or you're going to go the other side and make an apple pie or pumpkin pie, you need to know how to make a pie dough. I think that it's important to know how to make it from scratch by hand, not in a mixer, not in a food processor, just because if all those things are stripped away from you, you want to get a good quality product. And the only way you're going to know that is by doing it by hand. So when you're doing something by hand, it actually gives you the feel for it, and you can tell like if this is a good product or if I've overmixed, if I've done something wrong. If you always do it in a mixer, or you always do it in a food processor, or you always buy your pie dough, and those things become unavailable to you, you're not going to know what went wrong, or if you mixed or overmixed, or if your product's going to come out correctly. This way, you're going to have a feel for it, and you'll know exactly if your pie dough is correct and will come out great in the oven or not. You don't want to have to like put it in the oven and then wait and it comes out and you're like, oh no, I messed up. You want to ensure that before you put it in there, you're getting a good quality product, regardless of what you're making with the product. And that's the great thing about pie dough. It's one of those base recipes that is good to have in your utility belt, just because you could pull it out and use it for a bunch of different things. It's not just, I can make apple pie with this recipe, or I can make pumpkin pie. The possibilities with a pie dough are endless, and you can get really creative with it, which is really cool because it's such a base recipe. It's not super savory and it's not super sweet, so you can really do anything you want with it. So for my pie dough, I'm doing a very basic recipe. I'm starting out with 12 ounces of AP flour and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I personally like mine a little bit salty because I'm going to make something sweet with it. And that flavor combo just kind of puts your pie over the edge, in my eyes at least. That little bite of saltiness in it just brings everything together, and it's not just one flat note after you've added all your filling. So again, 12 ounces of AP flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I just kind of run through it with my hands just to ensure that my salt is mixed in and I don't really have any clumps in my flour. Then we've got 9 ounces of butter that I've cubed. It's cold. Unlike some of the other recipes, we want to ensure that this butter stays cold. And I have floured hands, so none of this is going to get stuck to me. And I just kind of put it all in there. And you can see that it's cold because none of it's sticking together. None of it's sticking to my hands. It's really hard to break. And I think that's the best way to start out a successful pie dough. I'm just gonna put my hands in here, get them floured up, and start to chop up my butter. Another great thing is you have the option here. You can substitute all or some of your butter for shortening. I know people swear by shortening, some people swear by butter. To me, butter is lending a better flavor, whereas shortening is giving you a flakier crust. But I've found that if you really pay attention to your crust and you're making it correctly, you're not going to be able to tell if you've used butter or shortening when it comes to flakiness. I've always been able to get a really great result using butter, and that's because I really kind of baby my pie dough. I want to make sure that the base of it is just really good, and that's the same for everything. If you're making something, the foundation is what matters. If you're building a house, you want to make sure that that foundation is solid. And it's the same for baking. If your foundation isn't solid, it's going to be a hard uphill battle for even the simplest recipes. So now I've got my butter to where I want it. Everything is like a lima bean size or a little bit smaller, and it's pretty uniform, and that's what we're looking for. If you're trying to make a little bit of a heartier crust, like something that you want to be a little bit tougher, you can break this butter down a lot more. I want my pie dough to be flaky and light, and I want it to be fork tender. And what that means is when you're sticking your fork through it, it's literally gonna break. But it does hold together as a whole. So now I'm just gonna make a little well in the center. And in here I have 2 ounces of cold water and 2 ounces of whole milk. You'll see different recipes will have all cold water and maybe some milk powder. If that's the case and your recipe has milk powder, just make sure that you're putting your milk powder into your water and dissolving it and not into your flour. If you do that, you'll end up with little black pellets because your milk powder won't fully dissolve if you just put it into your flour. You need to put it into your water and dissolve it if that's the recipe that you have. That way your pie will bake really nicely. So I just put all this liquid in the center here in my little well, and I'm just going around with a plastic scraper and kind of tossing it in. And you can see it's just starting to soak into my flour. One thing about pie dough, if you have done a recipe a few times, like I've done this one, I would know if I overmixed my butter because my milk water mixture will not soak into this. And that's how you can tell that you've overmixed. But you can see here that it's still pretty dry and all of my liquid is gone. And look at this, it's very dry, it's very powdery, and that's what we want. We're gonna create those layers by folding this dough over and over again. Almost similar to what we've done with the biscuit dough. So when it comes to this, don't be afraid. We're gonna dump all this onto your table. It won't get that messy if you contain yourself. If you're throwing your stuff in the air, then yes, it's gonna get messy. But if you watch, it will all stay together, I promise you. Don't be afraid of tossing out all of your product onto your table. I recommend grabbing one of these. I've actually seen these at Target, but you can get them at places like Chef Toys, Sur La Table. They're just a little plastic scraper, and it's a little bit better than the handheld ones with the handle. This one actually bends and it fits the shape of my bowl really well, and I can really get everything out, and it can also scrape the bottom. Most of the time they're under $1, which is really great. And then this is a metal bench scraper. This they actually sell everywhere. It's great for everything. I use it for pizzas. I use it for when I make pie dough, biscuit dough. This is literally a pastry chef's, like, at least my favorite tool. I use it all the time. So I'd really recommend picking one of these up if you're going to be doing a lot of baking. So now I'm just going to dump this out gently. Scrape out all of that goodness onto your table. So now the reason I like to use both of these is because this one literally will keep everything together so you don't lose any part of your mixture. Now what I'm going to do is scoop right under, fold over and press down. Scoop under, fold over and press down. And you can see it starting to come together. I'm not kneading it like I would a bread dough. Like, none of me is pushing out. I'm literally scooping underneath, folding straight on top, and pushing straight down. I'm creating layers. Even when I pick this up, you can see it's starting to stick, and you can see the layers right down in here, which is really great. That's what you're looking for. This is also great because you can use them to clean each other off. And this way you're not losing any of your product. It's really important when you're working in a commercial kitchen that you don't waste product. And a lot in my class is about how you're going to work in the real world. I know that not everybody is going to go out and get a job in a bakery or in a pastry shop, but it's really useful to know, even at home, you don't want to waste product. So anything you can do that keeps all of that as usable product is what you want to be doing. So you can see it's starting to come together even more. I have even less crumbly dough. I'm going to flip this whole thing over so I can get all the flour at the bottom. And I can still feel that my butter is hard in here. It's not melting, and that's what you want. You want to work with this really quickly because you don't want any of your butter to melt. So as you can see, my pie dough is starting to come together really well. I can pick it up. There's a little bit of crumbles, but if you can see in here, it's making layers just like a biscuit would. And that's what you want, because that's what's giving you that great flakiness that pies are famous for. Now I've seen people mix this until it's a cookie dough in a mixer, like literally just comes together and they're like, no, it's the same, it's fine, we can use this. No. You might be able to use it. Yes, you can roll it out. You can bake a pie with it. But the quality of product you're going to get if you did it correctly and you baked it when it was over mixed is a completely different product. It's literally going to be like a sweet dough or a pot sucre. It's going to be crispy and it's not going to have its layers that you're looking for. So yes, while the product will look beautiful out of the oven, it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to have that same quality. And I think that's the component that's missing sometimes when people do things correctly versus when things are done incorrectly and they still are used. And you don't want that to be you. You want to serve this to people and you want people to be like, oh my goodness, her pie dough was flaky, it was flavorful. And that's the kind of product you're going to get by following these steps. So I call my pie dough done at this point because we've mixed it. It's still cold, but it's starting to get a little bit warmer and softer, and that's not what I want. I want to preserve all those layers. So at this point, I push it together. I'm not folding it again. I'm literally just shaping it so that it's a consistent shape. And then I just like to clean off my table a little bit. And now what I'm gonna do is just wrap up my pie dough, and I like to let it sit in the cooler for at least 30 minutes. And I think that's just a thing that we do with everything that's made with flour, just because you want your flour and the gluten that's developed to rest. And when a product is rested, it's so much easier to roll it out. You have to think of it kind of like your muscles. When they're tight, it's hard for you to stretch or do anything with them. But when you're relaxed and you've loosened up your muscles, you're pliable. You can do more things. You're not gonna get hurt. And you have to think of your dough as the same. Once it's relaxed, you're able to roll it out thinner. It's a little more pliable, and that's really what you want when you're gonna be making your pie. So after I've wrapped up my pie dough, I'm gonna put this in the cooler for 30 minutes just to let it chill, and then I'm going to bring it back out and make my pies with it. It's actually gonna be in a separate video, so once you guys made your pie dough, if you wanna come back and watch the video so you can decide what kind of pie you wanna make, I'm actually gonna show you guys how to blind bake a pie crust. That's actually on one of our finals at OCC, and it's a really important thing to learn how to do because that's how you're gonna get your really crisp crust. I don't know if you've had a pumpkin pie where the crust is soggy, or even like a banana cream pie where it's not even on the edges, like you can't stand your pie up. This blind bake method really helps you get the perfect pie crust, perfect quiche crust, for any kind of cream pie, and that's what we're gonna be doing in our next video, so make sure to check it out.